Welcome back to the Real with Joseph Labman. I have Joseph Labman. You guys having a great Tuesday afternoon. We'll get into the Real. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share. Shout out to all the new subscribers, especially from yesterday's show. Yesterday we had a lot of viewers, new viewers, people who subscribed. So shout out to all you guys, and thank you guys for sharing the video, hyping the video, leaving feedback and everything. So I appreciate you guys. And also that's a new feature as well on YouTube. You can hype a video now down below in the comment section. So please hit the hype button if you would mind. It helps promote this video more in the algorithms, and we appreciate that a ton. It helps the channel a lot. So yeah, shout out to you guys. But here we are. I did a show 24 hours ago, I think it was, or a little less than, and a day later, and nothing. LeBron, we're still waiting. The world is still waiting for his decision to be made, as the NBA is still on hold. We heard Adam Silver over the weekend talk about how he kind of wants LeBron to hurry up a little bit because the NBA needs to do the scheduling, need to figure out their primetime games. Networks or TV networks want to know what they need to do, and the whole thing. So the NBA has kind of made it known. Obviously, the commissioners made it known, that they want to have this wrapped up here pretty soon. Now, LeBron, he's not in a hurry at all, and the NBA is still on hold. The NBA, everybody's still sitting around waiting for LeBron to make his decision. And Rich Paul, on the Pat McAfee show today, he tells everybody just to, just be patient. Like we've heard over and over again, just be patient. We're going to continue to sit and wait and see what happens. And yeah, so here we go again with Rich Paul today on Pat McAfee show, saying we all need to be patient and just wait.
LeBron is making this decision. LeBron has all the information he needs. LeBron is kind of trying to figure it out for what's best for his family, him, his legacy, what he wants to do with his life. Is that kind of the right thing? And then we can kind of just put this to bed until you guys, until Mr. James the King decides to tell us he's coming to the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, just have a little patience with him and us. Obviously, Pat is his choice. I have a job to do to set the table for him, but it's his choice. And in my conversations with Adam, which obviously, Adam, the greatest commissioner of all leagues, we understand where the league is at and things of that nature as it pertains to the schedule. But it's a very conflicting thing because this is a very important choice for him. And you cannot rush it. I think he's earned the right not to be rushed. And so it's not a thing where you're toying with people's emotions or trying to make it about anything more than the fact that, hey, this man has a very important layered decision to make across business, across family, across basketball. And, basketball is the business, obviously. But, just have to be patient with him. I don't know, Pat. I wish I did know. I don't know. I don't know.
That's Connor.
I wouldn't even joke with you.
That's Connor there right there.
Okay, so Rich Paul continues to tell us, we got to be patient. We got to sit and wait. And he doesn't know what LeBron's doing, and that LeBron is still deciding and all this. Now, do I believe LeBron is actually sitting there right now, gee, I wonder what team I'm going to play for next? Like out of these 14, and the reported teams it's been reported, David Menon put an article out overnight. And he put in the article the 4 teams that it's probably narrowed down to is Cleveland, Miami, Philadelphia, and the Warriors. And that the preference is one of the Eastern Conference teams because he wants to go in the East. Obviously, we talked about that yesterday, how, according to reports, his preference is to go to the East and go to, because that's the easier path to the championship because you don't got to go through the Thunder, you don't got to go through the Spurs. And in his eyes, that maybe that's a better path to the finals. Now, I said yesterday on this show, I think that's probably if it's obviously winning's a big priority in this. If you want to go out and try to win a championship in your last 2 years you play, let's say, you want to go East. I personally believe though, if it came down to it, in my opinion, I think it would. I ranked it yesterday. I think I said I would have Cleveland 1. I would still have Golden State 2, which I've said all along. I think Golden State, to me, has been the other option he's seriously considered because it's California, because he's lived out there. He likes the West Coast. All right, his family lives a lot, live in Los Angeles. We've seen guys like Chris Paul do that before, where their family still in Los Angeles, and he played with the Warriors. Now, very challenging, and Chris Paul spoke about that, how challenging that was, and he said it was a breath of fresh air once it was over, and he went back to the Clippers. But I still think Golden State I would have 2, but I would say Miami 3 because of familiarity. and then Philly 4. Some people may say Philly 3, Miami 4. I think Miami 3 because, again, I think LeBron, he's made it very clear, I think, what he wants, and that's, they've said happiness, but I think a chance to compete, but also somewhere he's comfortable and where he'll feel appreciated. And I think that's kind of what it's going to boil down to. And I think Miami would have an edge there over Philadelphia, in my opinion. But not that they wouldn't be appreciated there. But I think, to me, that's how I would rank it. But it seems to be that it's going to be one of the teams in the Eastern Conference, according to the latest reports. Now, I also said on this show yesterday that, again, I'm not an insider. I'm not one of these people that were out over the weekend on X putting all this fake stuff out that were driving the markets, and people were going crazy about it. And with Miami in particular, all these people saying, "Oh, it's a done deal to Miami. The plane has landed," and all this. I'm like, listen, these guys. I told you guys yesterday, these people aren't real insiders. Like the guy that went on Dan Le Batard's show he had on yesterday. The guy told you it was about clicks and views and stuff like that. So. And obviously that report didn't come true last night either, because it was supposed to happen last night, heading to Miami, according to that guy, and it didn't happen, which I told you it wasn't. So, again, but what I was told yesterday, I shared on the show, somebody that would know, somebody that spoke to LeBron 2 weeks ago and is around him and his people all the time and knows them very, very well. Just leave it at that. But they're kind of in the clique. But that the decision was going to be coming out here in the next couple days. So, am I surprised we're not hearing a decision today? No. But I think tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I think you definitely could. I just have a hard time believing he's going to go another week. At some point, it's like you want to just get it over with and move on. Unless next week, you got NFL training camp. Not that LeBron cares about any of that, but it's like, at some point, you just got to make a move. And I think this is the best week to do it because there's really not a whole lot going on. The World Cup just wrapped up. Again, football doesn't start up till next week. So now is a great time to do it. And I think, in my opinion, this is just my speculation and kind of based on what I was told, but from that guy said, if it's going to happen within the next couple of days, a decision will be put out. Why not the 23rd? Because it's 23. I don't know. Maybe that's a little too cliche. At this point, we're just kind of, you got to look for something. They've left us with nothing. I could see the 23rd, which would be Thursday. So, again, I think at some point this week it's going to get announced. Like, I just don't see him dragging this out. What's the point of dragging it out more and more? And the NBA is on hold. You have guys out on the market like a Jonathan Kuminga, for let's say, who a young guy who's had shown some good flashes in his career. He's had some, he's got some ways to grow still, but still a really good player. 20 something year young, early 20s. 6'9" Wayne two-way guy who's just sitting there. The Cavs have interest in him possibly. If they don't get LeBron, they go with Kuminga, or you see a team like the Lakers are sitting there waiting on Kuminga, but Kuminga's just sitting there on hold because everything's revolved around LeBron. And there's a lot of people in this market. Draymond Green has not signed his deal yet. I almost said Kevin Love. James Harden has not signed a deal yet. Hell, Kevin Love. Not that I think Kevin Love is, a big. He's not the player he used to be, obviously, but I think he may go somewhere with LeBron. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cavs say, "Hey, let's get Kevin Love as like our, end of the bench guy to have around." That's a guy like that, a veteran who's just sitting around. The whole league is on. There's a lot of people, a lot of players that are really good players that are still just sitting there, and it's all revolves around his decision on where he goes. And once he makes his decision, wherever he goes, the rest of the dominoes will fall. Again, like Kuminga being one of them, and you'll see guys that opted out of their contracts, like Draymond and Harden, finally sign. So, a lot is on hold, and then obviously Adam Silver talked about, which Rich Paul talked about. He spoke to Adam that the league wants it wrapped up here pretty soon. So, but no announcement today, and the latest from Dave McMenamin. I get to hold on. Actually, we get to this because I heard Draymond Green say this yesterday. Adam Hurley, good to see you, my friend. Adam Silver, stupid. Tell LeBron to hurry up. Nobody gives a f who's playing on Christmas. Well, yeah, and I get it from the league's perspective. It's like you want to get things organized ahead of time and planned and scheduled. The people that are probably suffering the most from this is the media people. Because usually around this time by now, they're probably already out on vacation with their families and taking some time off until September. But they're on standby and really can't do anything because they got to cover this, obviously the last big decision by LeBron. But again, it's a business you signed up for. It is what it is. Um, but I think like Draymond Green said yesterday, he thinks Adam Silver. He didn't say he was stupid. Yeah, he didn't say the word stupid, but he said he thought it was a mistake by Adam Silver to say that to LeBron because he said he thinks, knowing LeBron, that LeBron might purposely now just drag it out more. So if Adam Silver, by saying that, causes that to happen, then like, bro, like that's not a good job by the commissioner. Like, what are we doing? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think maybe LeBron did delay it. Maybe he was going to do it Sunday night. And once he heard Adam Silver earlier in the weekend, he said, you know what the hell, I'll go in the next week. Maybe. I don't think so. I don't think LeBron really cares. I think, like Rich Paul just said, they understand all that and what's going on. So I think, to me, it'll probably happen here in the next couple days, no later than this weekend. I just don't see him going another week. I would be a little surprised. And here I've said that before 2 weeks ago. I was like, I don't think it's going to drag out too long. But then as it went on, you're kind of like, okay. And that's why I started to say on the show, like, when's it going to happen? People ask me, like, I don't know. You just have to wait whenever he feels like it, I guess. So, but I mean, Thursday the 23rd, that makes a lot of sense because it's 23 for 23. Maybe LeBron will do something cliche like that. I'm just speculating, but I do think it's going to happen here pretty soon. The Cavs only one of the teams with depth. The Cavs need to trade Craig Porter Jr. for Bronny. Bronny better. He shot 30% last year. He hold his own defensively. Well, I think Bronny right now is still a developmental player. I mean, would I trade Craig Porter Jr. for Bronny? Excuse me, my throat's a little bit. I probably wouldn't. I've actually liked what I've seen from Craig Porter Jr. personally. So I don't think he's a bad player off the bench. But if they get Bronny, I think they've left a spot open. So I think they could just trade a second-round pick for him. They don't have to give up anything and maybe just assign him to the G League, to the Charge team, and maybe bring him up throughout the year if that's what happens. I mean, I would think if LeBron comes to Cleveland, you would think he wants his son to come here eventually, but maybe not. But I know that's been reported. The Cavs left that door open. Yeah, if it was another team, I think he gets it done sooner than later. Yeah, I mean, we talked about that yesterday. I don't think he drags this out this long. I mean, if he drags it out this long and picks somewhere else other than Cleveland, especially a team like Miami or Golden State, which it'll be, him going to South Beach twice, and then him going to Golden State, obviously we know what that would mean to Cleveland fans. Now, if he goes to Philly, I think people would kind of get over. I think fans would still be upset because it's like, damn, we dragged this out this long. But, I think people will eventually get over because, he's never played in Philly. There's no really any relations to Philly between Cleveland, the Cavs and them. And I think people would say, okay, maybe he just wants to go play for a different team and try to win a Ford championship somewhere else. But I just have a hard time seeing him drag it out this long and not picking Cleveland. And I've said a lot. I think a lot of this, if he's filming a documentary, I'm sure he's got a ton of content. We live in the content over everything era. And so, he's surely got a ton of content, traveling around, golfing with Draymond, going to Fanatics Fest. I'm sure there's a lot of behind the scenes footage he's gathered. And if he started back when they went on the trip with the 16 team over in Europe, he's got a ton of content for that documentary. So again, it creates a lot of this drama. The media is manifesting. People are all into it every day. Like, wait, is today gonna be the day? Obviously it's dictated these betting markets, crazy. I mean, it's like, that's insane. You have these weird fake reports out there. And, even that guy, even Corbo and Little Italy in Cleveland, shout out to Corbo. He's, adamant that it's happening this Saturday. Like, he could even be dictating the market in some, which is crazy to think that a bakery in Cleveland could be dictating the betting markets on LeBron. That's just where we're at with this. But, again, I think, if he dragged it out this long, I would still say Cleveland. July 23rd announcing on 3:23 p.m. Shout out to Trini boy Alex Boss says hello. Thank you for tuning in, my friend. Thanks for hello to you. We already read that one. What team are you a fan of? I'm a fan of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I grew up in Ohio, so obviously I'm a fan of the Cavs, diehard fan, but love basketball and cover the Cavs, man. That cover a lot of NFL, Browns football mainly, but I'm a Cavs fan. Dream WAKR, good to see you again. He said he going to Miami, big perk Swade. No disrespect. He said to Cleveland and Philly, he wants to spend time in cold when he's been used to LA weather. Now, Wally keeps telling me this. Wally thinks it's going to be July 31st. And maybe I'll drop the link here in a little bit if you want. Let me know if you want. I'll let you explain why you think it's be July 31st. But he keeps, and maybe that's right. I mean, that would be not this Friday, but the Friday after. So will LeBron wait till the last day of the month? I mean, who knows? I think it'll happen this week, but I mean, at this point, all bets are off. Who knows? Brody, you know when LeBron will get traded? He's taking so long. Again, Justin, good to see you again. I think it's gonna be this week. You would think. I mean, there's nothing else going on this week, so this is a perfect week for him to make this announcement. There's no World Cup. Training camp don't start in the NFL until next week when rookies start reporting and stuff like that. So this is a great time for him to make this announcement because all eyes are on him. I mean, the first topic on all the shows today in Cleveland, let's just talk about Cleveland locally, is LeBron. Now next week, once we start camp and that training camp battle starts with Shador and Deshaun, that's gonna be the first topic by far because anybody in Cleveland knows that's Brownstown. And not that people aren't excited about possibly LeBron coming back, but at the end of the day, that's what it's going to be like, and it's going to be like that in a lot of cities. And I think some people, other markets like Philly, they have no relation to LeBron. They're intrigued, and I'm sure they're excited about the possibility. But a lot of people in Philly, they don't have no relation to LeBron. Golden State, at the end of the day, it's Golden State, still Steph's town. People in Miami, even they're excited. Obviously, they've had LeBron before; they'd love to have him back, but it's Miami, it's summertime. Like, eventually people in Cleveland are going to move on to the training, like the Browns, and shift to that. Like, people are going to get kind of over it eventually. I think some people already have. I think if he's going to announce this is a great week to do it because there's nothing else significant going on. So why not now? CPJ is better than Bronny, says Wally. All right. Elevated, you don't teach them play. You just hate people's children. Oh, he's talking about Wally. I see. Let's see. I think roster changes are happening as we speak. That's why LeBron's not saying anything yet. I think it involves James Harden getting sent out for someone else. I don't think James Harden's getting moved anytime soon. Now, I'll have more on this here in a little bit. When something Rich Paul said on his podcast, I thought was interesting that came out overnight. But I don't think James Harden's getting moved this summer or anytime before February, let's say, or January. He is building a house in the area that I know. Not going to say where, but he's building a house in the Cleveland metro area. So he doesn't seem like a guy that's, going to be leaving anytime soon, in my opinion, based on his actions behind the scenes, what he said, what he's saying publicly. And even the reporters have said he opted out knowing when they brought him here was it February when they traded for him? Their intention was we're keeping this guy around for the long term. Like we're going to I think they might've been the only team that said, we'll give you this contract you want. So, and they gave up Darius Garland, a younger player, their franchise point guard, to get him. I don't think they're just going to, get rid of him right now. I think if they get LeBron, which they probably have a good feel they will, I think they're going to ride it out. And we've heard Rich Paul talk about, him and with Scoop Robinson. He told him in that article last week that, him and LeBron have a good relationship, and him and Rich Paul and James Harden have been good friends, and or I don't say good but they're friends, and that it wouldn't be that big of an issue. So we've heard James Harden talk about it publicly. We know LeBron the last few years we put up quotes when he was in LA that he would have took less money to bring in a guy like James Harden, and he admires James Harden. So I think they'll give it a shot. And maybe they want to see James Harden. I mean, I know James Harden didn't have a great series, particularly against the Knicks. I thought he had some other good moments in the two series prior. And he had some good moments in the regular season when he was here. But, I think that last series against the Knicks he wasn't just him that was bad. I think he was the main one because he was on an island with Jalen Brunson and couldn't stop him at all. But, I think that whole team just had a bad series, bad coaching, and they just got outclassed all the way around. So, I think they probably look at it. Let's get James in here for a full off season, full training camp, maybe with LeBron. and let's see how that goes. Maybe sometimes playing with certain people can bring the best out of you, or it can make me maybe bring a different side of his game in this point in his career that he'll have to adjust to LeBron and maybe bring something better out of him. He's more where he can become more efficient. Now, defensively, that's the biggest thing with James, I think, because he's always been a high level offensive player. He's one of the, I mean, he's always been great, elite at one point. Offensively, we know that. So I think defensively, that's where he's going to have to, and really the whole just a lot is just effort, And I think with a guy like LeBron, who is older at times, he doesn't play defense like he used to at all, but if your goal is to win a championship, you LeBron understands when you got to turn it on and when you can turn it off. And I think what that Cavs locker room needs is a guy like LeBron who A, has the know-how of how to win because he's won 4. None of these guys won any. But also B, he has a cachet here in Cleveland. He's the, as people say, the GM. But also too, there's a different type of work ethic and expectation every single day. Like this guy, you don't play 23 years away at that level without coming to the gym every day. We've heard stories about it, getting there early, leaving, later, and just the type of grind and everything, just how it just elevates the whole franchise. It's contagious. So, I think that will get the best out of a guy like James Harden. Shout out to, let's see. Perk said he hasn't spoken to LBJ in over a year, so Perk knows nothing. I did see what Perkins said. I don't know. I mean, he may talk to Rich Paul. I know he was bitching about Rich Paul not calling him back though, recently on First Take. So I don't know. Maybe Perk has spoken to some people. Maybe he has. I don't know. I know the relationship isn't what it once was. Samurai Firefly. I'm sorry if I didn't mispronounce that, but conspiracy that LBJ is stalling until past August 6th to see what the Wizards actually do with AD as far as the extension. Now that's actually I could buy into that, honestly. Now, do I think they're still going to trade Anthony Davis? I don't. I mean, they've come out publicly and said they're not. AD was with the team at Summer League, practicing with them. The GM has come out and said they're not trading him. Rich Paul said he's not. His agent said he's not getting traded. Now, obviously, he's not untouchable. Like anything could happen anytime. Maybe the Warriors bite last minute and give up all that Washington was asking for, which was a ton. It wasn't just 2 first-round picks and Jimmy Butler. They wanted like multiple future first-round picks, pick swaps, second-round picks, and then obviously they got to take Jimmy Butler back, who isn't the player he once was. Still a really good player when healthy, but he's coming off an ACL. He's 36 years old, big contract. He's making over $53 million. I think he's making like $50-something million next year. So, that's a lot to bring back. Now, that I can buy into that maybe because I think, my opinion, if it wasn't Cleveland, I've always thought it'd be Golden State because it's California, and his family could still live in LA. But I think that's contingent on them getting a guy like AD, because you look at their roster right now, I don't think LeBron has any intentions to want to play with Jimmy Butler personally. If I had to guess, I think obviously he loves Steph. Draymond's his boy. I think they obviously those three can make it work. But throwing Jimmy back in the mix in the middle of the season, who has never been a great spot up shooter, and how does that fit? Like, I just don't know if that really fits with what they need. Now you put an AD in there, that's a little different. Because LeBron's played with AD. You got Steph. You can move some pieces around. Now you have to fill out the rest of the roster as well. They got to have some depth. I don't know. They'll have to figure that out with whatever money they would have left. But it's definitely a better team than what they are currently constructed. If you had LeBron on that Warriors team as constructed, they're not winning the West. You add AD. I wouldn't pick them to win the West still, but I think it increases their chances, and maybe they can make some other subsequent moves to help them become better. But a lot has to go in there. I just don't see AD getting traded. I maybe looked at some of the markets on that. Will Anthony Davis be a Wizard? They won't even let you bet on it. So I don't think AD is getting moved, but I could buy into that. I like that. That's a good one, Firefly. I'm not a Cavs fan right now, but the Cavs are the best choice you have. Have you looked at the Sixers' whole roster? It's disgusting. I haven't looked at their whole roster. Shout out to my guy DFJ Hoops. And if you got any Sixer fans in the house, go subscribe to DFJ Hoops. He's a good dude. We collaborate sometimes on other people's channels, or he'll come on my channel, or I'll go on his. He's a good dude. Covers all things Philadelphia sports, or Philadelphia 76ers, DFJ Who's. But anyways, he would probably know more about this than me. But when I'm looking at Philly's roster, they got Maxey, they got Edgecombe, who's on the come up. They got Jaylen Brown. They just signed Dean Wade, who was in Cleveland. They got Joel Embiid. When I look at Philly, I don't know if I really like the fit. When I heard Kevin Garnett break that down, obviously he knows a lot more basketball than me, but I thought he made a good point, though. You got a guy in Brown who is going to need the ball. You got a guy in Edgecombe who's on the come up. You don't want to hinder his development. You got a guy in Maxey, but then most importantly, who's ball dominant. But also you got a guy in Embiid who, when he gets that ball down on the block, in his hands, he's not looking to dish it. Like, he's looking to score. He's going to be he's still the number one option. So, and he obviously got to stay healthy, knock on wood. But, I don't know if LeBron is necessarily what they need. If that's, you could look at their 4 spot and say they need a playmaking power forward. Obviously, LeBron could he's the ultimate playmaker. But, LeBron is going to want the ball in his hands too. You heard him kind of, I don't want to say complaining, but he had to take a lesser role this year in LA, even next to Luka and Austin Reeves. At some point it was reported he was the third option at some point. So, I don't know if he was all the way happy with that, but I don't know. I think it's a weird fit. Now, what the rest of their team looks like, I don't know their bench. Obviously that's important. You got to have depth. And LeBron said it on his podcast a month ago. You got to have youth, and you got to have youth, and you got to have depth. So, like when he said they played against OKC, it wasn't they were out schemed or out coached or any of that. They were just out talented, and OKC just had more depth, and now OKC's obviously, they're trying to stay out of second apron. They just lost, they had to trade Lou Dort. They lost some other pieces. So still got a good core, but, that matters. Let's see. Firefly says, agree the Cavs are the best fit for multiple reasons. Yeah, I like the Cavs fit. I think they're the best fit. I think just what they need, I think he'll fit right in. I think the 2 bigs, I think, will really benefit from LeBron. I think Donovan Mitchell is a guy that LeBron's already kind of played before. Kyrie, a ball dominant guard who could score any night. He could go out and drop 40, 50 every night. Elite scorer, then James Harden's obviously the big question mark everyone wants to know. But I look at their bench, though. I like their pieces. I thought Max Strus was a undervalued player, or underrated, underappreciated player this postseason. I thought Max Strus was great. Dennis Schroeder's still a veteran point guard in this league who I think can give you valuable minutes. You look at him. The kid they just drafted, Malik Thomas, just was a first team summer league, but he really stood out in summer league. I know some of the reports of the Cavs believe that he could be actually a role player this year. Like, he's 6'5", 6'6", can really shoot the lights out, like athletic. That was a great pick there by the front office. And then I think what they need is a backup big still. They lost Dean Wade, so they got to replace that. But, I like the Cavs' depth a little more. I think a guy like Max Strus would really do well with LeBron. You look at guys like LeBron's played in his career, guys like Shane Battier, Mike Miller, guys like that. I think Max Strus obviously played Miami, so I'm sure him and LeBron probably have some familiarity with the type of culture system. I think he would do really well with LeBron. And Max Strus also, he's just not just a shooter. He does a lot of dirty work too. He likes to hustle. He likes to get after it. He gets you some rebounds some nights. Like, he's a really good player that you want on a championship team, or on a team that's trying to contend for a championship. So, but I like their depth. Miami's interesting. Their front line's a hell of a front line with Bam and Giannis. Wiggins, I think, is a solid 2-way player, a good defender. Mitchell, same thing. But what's the rest of their team going to look like? Right now, they haven't really got much. They need some shooting, need a little more depth. So, well, if we're keeping James, he did what he did the first game, the league come off the bench in the playoffs. Obviously we got to get down the road if we even get to that. But, possibly, but I don't know if you're going to pay a guy $30 million to come off the bench. Maybe. I don't know. Could I see James Harden getting moved back to the bench? As a 6th man, I don't know. A lot would have to happen for that to happen. I don't think that would happen right away. But that would be interesting. Shout out to Uncle Joey. He said La Drama. Uncle Joey, I saw your comment earlier. I didn't know. I thought we were cool. I don't know if you're upset. I know you're. I saw you say about Scoop Robinson, and I don't know Scoop Robinson. I'm just reacting to stuff that was out there. But I don't know. Everything cool, Uncle Joe? I hope you're doing well. I see you're a Miami U fan. Shout out to the Hurricanes. But he said La Drama. Samurai Firefly laughing. Let's see. Adam Hurley says La Cash Cow. Now we're getting to all the love, whatever. I just heard forget about Miami. Says Tribe Below. It's down to Philly and us. I don't know. Did you hear that from a report just now? Let me know. But thanks for sharing that. If it's Philly, says Parent John, us. If it's Philly and us, it's going to be us, I think. Yeah, I would take us in that situation for sure. No doubt about it, in my opinion. Shout out to Tony Show 216. His coming home, y'all. He didn't wait this long and did not exclude us out first. 216, baby. You know, Tony, I agree with that. I think if he waited this long, I think it's gonna be Cleveland. I would just have, man, if he did this all again, if he dragged it out after the decision in 2010 where he talked about how he, regretted how he executed that, not going to Miami. I think going to Miami was what he had to do at this point in his career. But, he learned from that. When he came back, he wrote the whole letter, heartfelt letter to people, and then when he left for LA, he executed a lot differently. And I think a lot of people knew ahead of time. It was well known he was leaving for the Lakers. The Cavs were at a different point. They had maxed out that roster. I think LeBron was at a different point in his life and his career. Yeah, I think going and playing for a prestigious franchise like the Lakers was learning, living in LA, his wife and kids, and business side of things out there. I think that was it was a different point. But when he executed that, it was just a simple press release the day of. July 1st was the day free agency started. It was just a simple press release Clutch Sports put out that was, I think, 4 sentences. So, he definitely he executed that a lot differently. And then a month later, he was on the Channel 3 News when he opened his I Promise School. And the last question the lady asked him was, hey, would you ever think about running it full circle back here in Cleveland still? I know you just signed with the Lakers, but would you ever think about still running it back full circle and finish your career in Cleveland? And he was like, well, I would never close no chapter and close no doors. And he said this was always, he said this will always be home. So, he handled it much differently. I would just have a hard time, and maybe LeBron don't care. And I don't think LeBron really cares what anyone else is saying, nor should he, right? It's his own life. Like Rich Paul said, he has the right to do what he's doing. He can take his time. He's in control here. So, do I think, though, he'll drag it out this long and do that to Cleveland again? Because LeBron knows more than anybody. He knows how people would feel in Cleveland if he went back to Miami again, or if he went to Golden State. Philly, I think people would still be kind of pissed because it took so long, but I think that people would get over it. But I just have a hard time believing that you would do that again at the end of your career. Now, maybe he could say, hey, I won that championship. I don't really care what they think. Possibly, I mean, he could, and again, he can do whatever the hell he wants. At the end of the day, it's just basketball. Like, is my life gonna, as a fan, am I gonna be all like, oh my gosh, this guy? No, I mean, it's LeBron. Like I always say, expect the unexpected. But I think in this situation, as long as it's gone the way it's gone, I just think I have a hard time believing he wouldn't pick Cleveland waiting this long. I agree with that. But shout out Uncle Joey says, I apologize. No, you're all good, my friend. All good, brother. He said I was mad at Scoop Robinson, not you, because he's a Knicks fan. Oh, I got you. I didn't know Scoop Robinson was a Knicks fan. I mean, I could tell he's kind of from New York. He talks like he's from New York. But a lot of people do not like Knicks fans. I've noticed. Hey, shout out to Knicks fans, but I know a lot of people, man, they do not like Knicks fans at all. But no, all good, Uncle Joey. Good to see you. But I don't know. That's kind of where I stand with it. Now, I got some other clips here I want to react to. I've been kind of rambling a little bit to start the show. But as before, probably 40 minutes ago, before I started this live, and again, I'm not saying this is the end. This isn't the holy grail, the end all be all, right? But I think it's interesting. I think Kalshi's interesting. I've been putting these odds up because it's kind of what people are thinking. Now, I think a lot of this has been kind of persuaded by, a lot of these bogus reports you've seen out on X and stuff the last couple of days and all that. But Right now, though, Cleveland has taken the lead again, 38%, 36%, to Miami's 36. So Miami had a big lead over the weekend. They were up yesterday by like 15%. I think, and I said this yesterday, there was no when Miami made that big run on the weekend on these odds, when they shot up to like 50-some% and Cleveland dropped. I said it on yesterday. I'm like, and I was telling people over the weekend people were texting me nonstop, like, man, Miami, Miami, Miami. I was like, he's going to Miami. And I'm like, there's been no significant, like, real information report that he's going to Miami other than just fake accounts or fake people trying to act like they're reporters. Like, there's been to me, nothing indicates to me he's going to Miami. All signs to me still point towards it's probably the only information that I think is credible is it's probably leading Cleveland still. We heard from Mark Stein, right, who's been a long time NBA reporter, and I think he's pretty plugged in. That people, even other teams like Miami, like Philly, like Golden State, they believe Cleveland's the team to beat still in this sweepstakes. So, and again, I don't see him in Miami because of the Pat Riley side of things, and Pat Riley spoke about it publicly yesterday, which, when I saw that initially, I'm like, I don't know if Pat Riley would really, would be out publicly right now talking openly about him and LeBron's relationship. He was actually, if he thought he was legitimately going to get him. Now, maybe Pat Riley was trying to do that to get LeBron's attention. That's possible. Maybe Pat Riley knows, and maybe if I play devil's advocate to that, maybe Pat Riley knows. I'll give you a conspiracy theory. Maybe Pat Riley knows LeBron's coming. Maybe they're just creating more content for the documentary. Maybe they'll go meet today. Maybe LeBron called him and said, I'll come meet you in Miami, Pat, and let's talk finally. Maybe, but I think it's highly unlikely. But, I just don't see, not because of Miami. I think LeBron respects Miami. Miami's obviously a respectable organization. Pat Riley ran, and I think Eric Spoelstra is a great coach, and they develop and produce guys, no-name guys from the draft to turn into solid players like Max Strus all the time. And, they're obviously a playoff team year in and year out. I mean, Miami's a great organization, no doubt about it. And I think LeBron, obviously, like he said, he grew up there as a player, that he went to learn how to win in Miami. And so, and learned what it took to be an excellent championship level athlete, right? He was already a freak athlete. He was a great athlete, but he had to learn what it took to be a champion and what the habits are of that and being in that culture every single day. But, like I said, a lot of things that went on his last year there, some of the stories I've shared, not just the infamous cookie story that everybody knows, but and that Pat Riley said they haven't really spoken since. I just have a hard time seeing LeBron going back there, because now, was it Dan Gilbert type level hate when he left? No, absolutely not. Obviously, Dan Gilbert wrote the letter that was taking personal shots at LeBron, and he felt a type of way about it. And, Gilbert felt a type of way about how all that went down. Now, they had to meet in person and hash it out, right? And LeBron came back. So anything's possible. But if they haven't met yet and Pat's going out publicly and saying that, when I think a decision and an announcement could be looming any day, then I don't know. I don't really think it's trending towards Miami. So I think now that we're kind of weaving out all the BS that was out on X over the weekend from these fake reporters, wannabe insiders, that you're kind of seeing like, nah, it's probably still Cleveland. And, the other teams have been in consideration. So, and like Rich Paul said, the way they're executing this as well, nobody's meeting with LeBron, which tells me LeBron, like, A, if LeBron's not meeting with anybody, and B, what Rich Paul says, he already knows what he needs to know. And then C, he wants to go somewhere where he's comfortable and he wants to be appreciated. That tells me you would think Cleveland or Miami, but because of the Pat Riley factor, I would think probably Cleveland. And he's hanging out with the guy that's going to be the GM, his buddy. And, to me, I think it's just, I could see, and we know that Mitchell and Harden reportedly have had a text chain going on for the last few months. Like, it just seems to be trending, and it seems like Cleveland's the obvious answer. So, as I lose my pen. But, I don't know. That's where I stand on it right now, and I still think it's Cleveland. But I get some other clips here. Let me get this. Shout out to Red Hammer. Good to see you again. So Bam is very overrated. He was like one of their first options, and he barely cracked 20 points a game. I think Mobley or Allen is way better, high field goal percentage. I mean, Bam's a hell of a player. I like Bam. I know people. I mean, everybody has their opinion. They think he's over. I think he's an elite defensive player, number one. But I think offensively, he could shoot the three obviously very well. He scored 83 points last year in the game. Um, how he went about that, people have their own opinions how that went down that game. But again, he's a very good player, a high level two-way player. An NBA, he could be a perennial all-star type guy. I think he made the all-star team the last couple years. I could be wrong, but he's still a very good player. And so I think him with Giannis would be interesting. Now, I don't know how LeBron and Giannis with Bam really fit, because Giannis, throughout his career, a lot of times he has the ball in his hands at the top of the key. And, I just wonder how that fit would actually work with him and Giannis. I think LeBron and Bam could definitely work, but with Giannis in the fold, I'm not sure. And Channing Frye, who played with LeBron on the 2016 team, was just with LeBron over in Europe on the trip for the 2016 team. Here's what he had to say about Cleveland and Miami. Earlier, I think this was today, maybe, or just earlier today on Yahoo Sports. Might have filmed it yesterday, but on this Yahoo Sports show, here's what he had to say.
I think the only two options are Cleveland and Miami, but I don't like the roster in Miami at all. I don't like the roster in Miami at all. It's not enough shooters. Giannis plays more of a Jokic style basketball where he has to have the ball in his hands, and then now you're making LeBron James a spot up shooter. Where I think here, him and James Harden would be a pretty good matchup. I even talked to James the other night, and he was like, dog, we're just waiting on big fella. And so I think another thing when it comes to team culture, there's just a certain level of expectation when you have LeBron James on your team. The gym is going to be packed every single night. You're not going to have a dull game. Everyone's going to want to, and yes, he's 42. It's weird, right? I've never wanted to beat up on a grandpa before, but everyone seems to want to beat him up. And, I just think for Jared Allen, for Mobley, for a lot of these guys, they've gotten really close, but having him, even if he's on the bench, even if he's just there around there, it's going to put you over the edge because of your preparation.
And that's what I was saying earlier, because I agree with that. I've been saying for a while why I think LeBron is a good fit for the Cavs, because I think it's what number one, they have had that high level three starter caliber three since he left. And, I think they can use another playmaking wing out there, a guy who could score the ball, a guy who can take some pressure off of Mitchell, a guy who knows how to win, but also he brings the intangibles that they don't have. And, the word he used there was preparation. And when I look at the Cavs, I think what they've missed when you watch them, right? When you watch that Knicks series, for instance, I don't know if the Knicks were really that much more talented than the Cavs. I could say in some areas the Cavs had some advantages in certain spots, but what the Knicks did was they outcoached them. They out-prepared them. The Knicks just looked like a more championship caliber team. They looked like they had better habits defensively, because a lot of defense, 75%, a lot of it's effort and knowing your assignments, communication. You watch a lot. I broke down the film on some of those defensive breakdowns from the Cavs. It was just, bad communication, bad effort, you could tell bad preparation. But again, you have a bunch of guys who are very talented and a very good team. I mean, they've itched closer and closer and closer each year, and they finally made it to the Final Four. Had two, Game 7 performances where they looked really well, and they dominated Detroit at home in that Game 7. They got that win at home against the Raptors, so they won 2 Game 7s. They showed they can close out, but when they got to the biggest stage in the conference finals against the elite teams, you kind of saw, okay, there's still a gap there they got to make up, right? And they're right there. Like they got youth, they got talent, they got everything they need. What they're missing is the intangibles of how to take that next step. And I think, like he's saying there, that's where LeBron comes in, because Channing obviously was there in Cleveland. He got added in the middle of that season with the Cavs team, but that won in 16. But he could probably tell just being there, talking to guys, when he got there about LeBron's impact. And obviously there's a lot of pressure playing with LeBron, no doubt about it. You got the media side of things that, not saying it's anybody's, but it is what it is. When you're playing with LeBron, there's a pressure, there's ability, you got to go win. There's, there's a lot that goes into it. And so, everybody had to buy into a role. Kevin Love, it took him a while to buy into a role or figure out, I would say buy in, it took him a while to figure out his role, and that was a big as a guy that was putting up, 30 and 20 at times in Minnesota, and he comes to Cleveland and he's got a spot up in the corner, right? But I think what a guy like LeBron does, though, is what he did with that team is, hey, this is where you guys can be better at, because before LeBron came back, those 4 years he was gone, they had they had a young team building with Kyrie and Tristan and Waiters, but they didn't win nothing. They didn't make no playoffs. They were not a really good team, and they had to bring in LeBron to kind of change the mojo, change the culture, change the habits, take it to the next step. I think Cleveland actually has a pretty good culture right now. I mean, they've had some successful basketball for the last 4 or 5 years, really. I mean, they did a hell of a job rebuilding all this. You got to give them credit. When LeBron left in 2018, people said they were going to be dog shit for the rest, forever. That nobody gave him a shot. They said LeBron leaves, they're never going to be good again. They did it the right way, though. They shedded off their salaries. They're dead they're like J.R. Smith and Tristan. They got rid of those salaries. They cleared their books. They built through the draft how they should. They made smart trades, right? They went out and they drafted what they had picked. They got Colin Sexton, which eventually they turned him in to put him in a trade to go get Donovan Mitchell. They got Darius Garland, which they eventually flipped to get James Harden. We'll see how that pays off this year. But they got some good years out of Darius. They went and got Evan Mobley, who very good player, in my opinion, elite defensive player, a guy who could be a cornerstone for your team. They made smart trades. They stole Jared Allen in that trade, the big trade that sent the Harden trade, I think the one to Brooklyn. They did a lot of smart moves, getting guys like Lauri Markkanen even, who eventually they put into Donovan. They got Donovan out of him too. So, he was a really good player, obviously. He's a really good player now in Utah. So they did it the right way. They built through as a small market team, they built through good drafting and good trades, smart trades. They did it the right way. And they developed their guys over time with guys like JB, who I think is a really good developmental coach, and built that team up. So, and obviously bringing Kenny now to be the guy to help get you over the hump. So, again, I think what they're missing, though, is that final piece on the roster. And you look at the way this roster is built. To me, this roster is built kind of for LeBron. You got a guy like Mitchell who is similar to, like Kevin Garnett said, he's got some similarities to D Wade. Not as good as Dwayne Wade, that's not what I'm saying, so don't get it twisted. Dwayne Wade is an all-time great two guard. And I grew up watching D Wade, I know. But Mitchell has some similarities to Wade, though. Just a scoring two guard. I think there's some similarities there in terms of how he plays, an attacking two guard. So I think LeBron could fit well next to him. And then a guy like Mobley is a guy who, a stretch big. He's really improved his 3-point shooting. Had some big 3-point shots in the Game 7 against Detroit and then the playoffs. I thought he impressed me a lot. I thought him and Strus actually were the most consistent players in the postseason. But he's a guy, again, two-way guy. I think his offensive game will become a lot better with LeBron automatically. He'll get easier looks. And Jared Allen, I think, great rim running center, athletic big. LeBron's played with the double bigs before with AD and JaVale in LA. You got similar size double bigs up here in Cleveland. You got a scoring veteran point guard in Harden. So you got a shooter like Strus on the bench. You got Merrill. He's played with Dennis Schroeder. I think LeBron fits in pretty well here. So, and if he admires, the Golden State culture, which I think that's why he's considered them, Kenny Atkinson obviously spent some years there, was part of a championship there, 22 as the top assistant. So, I'm sure LeBron and Kenny can find some common ground. I'm curious what LeBron's relationship is with Johnny Bryant too, who's the Cavs top assistant. I know his relationship with Donovan's really close, but Johnny Bryant, I believe, was a Nike guy as well. So I'm sure him and LeBron probably know each other, but Coach Kobe Bryant. But near here or there. But again, I think Cleveland, there's a lot of things where LeBron just fits right in. And he has cachet here, right? He's got his guy in the front. He's got Weems. He knows Kobe Altman. Dan Gilbert will make sure LeBron's taken care of and satisfied. Dan Gilbert's he's a smart business guy. So, I think to me, it makes the most sense is Cleveland. But Parent says, yeah, I don't see him winning in Miami. He can retire there like an old person for sure. I mean, if there's a place to go retire, like they always say, people go to South Florida to retire a lot. Not only vacation, but to retire. I mean, it's a beautiful place. I love Florida. Don't get me wrong. I love Florida. Miami is a beautiful city. Great people down there. I was a Tampa guy. That's where my family lives. So I spent a lot of time there at Clearwater Beach. But hey, I mean, I wouldn't tell nobody not to go to Florida, South Florida, but to the beach. Judah Rising says Cavs Miami did that already. Golden State beat him, so that's a huge no. LeBron show go to Philly or Wizards. Washington built younger, better version of the 2020 Lakers. We've had two people say the Wizards, and we haven't heard the Wizards brought up at all. Now, do I think LeBron's going to the Wizards? Absolutely not. I don't think LeBron's going to the Wizards. I think we would know at this point in the process if they've actually been a consideration. Who knows? Maybe that's the big holdup. Maybe that's the shock. He goes to the Wizards. I don't think he's going to go to the Wizards. I don't see LeBron going to Washington D.C. or going somewhere where he's unfamiliar with. I just don't. It'd be interesting though. I mean, him and AD with Trae Young. They just drafted DeBonta, so I don't know what they do with him. Maybe interesting, but I just don't see that. But I've heard people keep bringing that up. That Brian Lewis says retire. Probably not for another 2 years. Yeah, he ain't retiring this year. Probably in 2 years, I think. I think I already read that one. Yes, I did. Bam scored 83 because he took every shot. If Mobley or Allen does that, they could score 83 also. But average out the year, the stats don't lie. Mobley is 19 a game and was the Cavs' third or fourth. Now with the Bam part, no, and I was referencing that earlier. I know some people what I said, some people had some thoughts on his 83-point game. I get it. I actually reacted to that the next day. I thought some of it I didn't like some of it, but I take the 83-point game out of it. Bam's still a really good player. He can score, he can defend, he's an athletic big, but defensively he's elite. He's really good. Now I think Mobley's elite defensively as well, and I like it. Mobley. I feel like sometimes one of the few people in the Cleveland Cavaliers space on the internet that actually defends Mobley. A lot of people give him crap and say he's overrated or he's not this, he's not that. I think I've always said about Mobley, people want him to be KD when he's more like AD and he's more like Bosh, right? And so, I when I look at Mobley, and I'm not saying he's going to be as good as those guys. Those guys are two all-time, greats in their eras, especially Chris Bosh. That guy, people forget how good he was. Like I saw somebody say recently that Chris Bosh was closer to Nick Claxton than he was to Anthony Davis. And I'm like, not to get off topic, but it's like, what in the hell is that? Are you crazy? Do you forget how good Chris Bosh was? But anyways, some of my Miami people watching need to go remind people how good Chris Bosh was, because Chris Bosh was a dude. But anyways, I think Mobley, though, that's more his style. And yeah, as a third or fourth, he averaged 19 a game. I think with LeBron, if you look at the pecking, Mitchell will be the first option still because he's the best scorer on the team. LeBron probably would be 2, but there's probably some nights where LeBron may say, let's make Mobley 2. And I think LeBron next to Mobley will enhance Mobley's scoring he could probably average 20, 21 points a game. And he's still a great defensive player, in my opinion. He maybe won defensive player of the year. He can switch out. He can guard out on the perimeter. He can guard any big. I mean, he can, and he likes to be physical down low. Maybe he doesn't stream like Kevin Garnett, but he definitely has some of those defensive capabilities in terms of the athleticism, versatility. I think Mobley's an excellent player. I'm kind of glad they didn't trade him, but I don't get some of this. I think a lot of this criticism people give towards Mobley, they want him to be somebody that he's not. I think the Cavs kind of, and I've said this on the show, I've did this 4 years now, kind of, from the time they got him to now. And I said at times, I'm like, I feel like the Cavs at times were trying to force him into playing like Kevin Durant. We want you to handle the ball and spot up, pull up and shoot. That's just not his game. When you watch him his whole career from high school to college to now, he plays more like a AD Chris Bosh type of guy where, he likes to have the ball on the block. He likes to get the ball. He can bring the ball up, and we've seen him do it fast in transition, but he's a more off the ball kind of guy to find his scoring. You got to run sets for him. You got to have guys like playmakers like LeBron and Harden that can get him involved. So, but I think LeBron would definitely, I bet you 100%, because I know LeBron has spoken publicly how much he admires. He thinks Mobley's a hell of a player. He thinks he's really good. I've heard a lot of players say that, Hall of Famers like Garnett being one of them. They admire his game. That you put a guy like LeBron next to him, and we heard what Channing Frye just said. Obviously, he played with LeBron. He benefited from him even later in his career. That guy, that's what Mobley's been missing, really. Somebody like that to build his confidence up more and to show him how, I think he just needs somebody like, hey, if you do this, you will be successful, and I will help you be successful. We will win. So LeBron goes to the Wizards like his idol, Michael Jordan. that'd be interesting. I don't think LeBron wants to go to the Wizards and repeat what happened with Michael Jordan. Now, that was a whole different thing than what happened to Michael Jordan. He obviously retired for a couple of years before he went there. And then they had the number one pick. Kwame Brown was obviously, he was the number one pick coming out at that time, no doubt about it, because if you go back at that time and look at the prospect, you're like, yeah, that's who you take number one. Jordan didn't want Kwame Brown. That was the thing. He wanted them to trade Kwame Brown, I think it was to the Clippers, for Elton Brand, because Jordan was actually trying to build a team to win. Elton Brand was already an established all-star in the league, a good player, and they didn't do that. They kept Kwame, and that kind of created a disconnect, and then it kind of created a disdain towards, I think, Kwame a little bit with Jordan and Doug Collins, who just basically did what Jordan told him to do, let's be honest. So, and that was that. And then it faltered out. But, the ownership thing. But yeah, I don't know if LeBron's going to be going to the Wizards like Jordan. But Bosh was a beast. Yes, he was. I don't get this Chris Bosh disrespect I've seen on the internet recently. I saw Udonis Haslam and D Wade kind of go after some people for calling that like the Knicks Claxton comment some guy made. I'm like, talk about again, content over everything. People will say whatever because it gets click, and we're up here talking about it. So nobody's in Ohio, so like me. So I get it, but I just come on, dude. I to say Chris Bosh is closer to Nick Claxton and Anthony Davis, that's just like. I'm speechless. Like, what? I feel like that's somebody on a different planet that was not here when Chris Bosh. Like, they'd have no idea. Like, they don't win the Miami. Like, I agree with Dwayne Wade. They don't win 2 championships without Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh was the guy that got the rebound for Ray Allen. Let's just go to that game in Game 6. He's the guy that got the rebound around 3 people in traffic and had the awareness to dish it out to Ray Allen. And also was the guy that closed out on a guy like Danny Green in the corner at the end of the game and blocked a shot out of bounds to win the game. I mean, Chris Bosh, that's just that game. But Chris Bosh was a stud. Like, don't get it twisted. And this guy sacrificed himself and built his game to still be an all-star around LeBron and D Wade and was a high-level dude. So a player doing so. So I don't get this Bosh. But I think Mobley can do the same thing. I'm like you. I think Mobley is better. I think Mobley's better than you giving him more minutes. I think more minutes, but I think just with LeBron, like I pointed out, just all the stuff. I think just with LeBron, he'll enhance his game even more. Just knowing what to do, just everything. I like Channing for just everything. I think he'll enhance his game even more. But yeah, man. So here we go. We wait. He said, you got great insight on old school hoops, bro. I didn't know that about Kwame Brown, and I'm 55 years old. Yeah, Kwame, shout out to Kwame, Bust Live. He was the guy. He actually spoke the truth of what happened on this channel when he came out, was it 5 years ago? And it makes a lot of sense, and I've heard people say that is what happened to play with him as well. They were there at that time with the Wizards. Eton Thomas was there, some other guys. So people have said that's true. Even Charles Oakley came out. He actually went on Kwame's show, I think, recently on the phone and talked about it. But but yeah, that was the story there. And then he got hurt too. That was a guy who his development, he didn't get the development and treatment he should have got as number 1 pick. And I think his confidence probably teetered like any other 18, 19-year-old, all that pressure on him. Then you get hurt, then you get shipped out, and then you kind of still played 13 years though. That's made $66 million. I'm sure he's living pretty good. If that's a bust, then hey, that must not be a bad life. Shout out to Kwame though. But yeah, that was the story. Channing Frye said he thinks he's picking us too. Yeah, and I played that clip, or you probably saw it. Yeah, he believes he's coming to Cleveland. Now he didn't say it outright, but you could tell by what he's saying. And do I think I saw the clip with Grant Hill? He was on their show with Road Tripping and with Allie Clifton, Perkins, and Richard Jefferson and Channing. And they both kind of said to like Richard and Channing, like, you guys probably know where he's going. Do I think Richard and Channing may have been told outright by LeBron that I'm going here? I would say, well, I don't know. I would say 50-50. I mean, do I think they have an idea based on conversations? Yes. And what Channing Frye mentioned in that episode was he kind of said, well, based on his conversation with LeBron, I think it was this show, that what LeBron's kind of looking for is comfort and where he'll be appreciated. So, and he got a shot to win and where he fit. I think that's Cleveland. So I get the Miami side because he's been there, but I point out the Pat Riley reasons, I think it's probably Cleveland. Most likely. Judah Rice says Skip Bayless started the Chris Bosh disrespect. You notice that's where most people talking points come from. That's a hell of a point there on the money. Absolutely, Judah Rice. From they let him disrespect a lot of players and accomplish, even Russell Westbrook. Yeah, he called him Bosh Spice, if I don't remember. And I don't like that. You know, like we here on this show, we cover the Browns, the Cavs. We've had guys say jokes before. You know, I've joked around before, guys, but I would never take it to the point where, especially if I'm national TV or something, where I would say something disrespectful outright and constantly say it about somebody. You know, I would never call somebody Westbrook constantly on, you know, and in that public eye. And no matter what I think about him and, you know, what I really think about him, I wouldn't say that. You know, I just think it's disrespectful. At the end of the day, these guys are athletes. We're not. Like professional athletes. We're not. These guys actually play basketball. They do this every day. This is their job. This is their livelihood. And I think nowadays with social media and because of shows like First Take with Skip and all that and how they, again, actually a highly successful show, but I think that kind of sports debate was a little toxic in some ways of sports because I think it's kind of made people feel like everybody has an opinion and everybody believes they're right and everybody believes they can just, with sports betting too, they think and analytics, like with football, especially with PFF and all this, everybody thinks they're an expert now. They can tell you all about it when they've never played. Some of these people have never played a single shot a shot or played it down or did anything ever in their life. But, you know, they can sit up here and say all these types of things. And then you're right. People see that on TV because just because something's on ESPN, somebody says something doesn't mean it's the Holy Grail and it's true. Like here, a lot of what you're seeing right now, I'm put out on ESPN from David Meneman and Rich Paul. It's what LeBron's camp is sharing to them. And that's what they want out publicly. Okay. That's how it works. I mean, and that's just, I mean, use an example for this sweepstakes, but like that stuff, just because Skip Bayless says something about a player doesn't mean it's correct. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, Skip Bayless thinks LeBron's the 9th greatest basketball player of all time. In my eyes, I think that's crazy. I think he's definitely at least top 5. I would probably say top 3, maybe top 2 with him and Jordan and then maybe Kobe. But I think it's us now. I was worried he might pick Miami. Yeah, I think it's Cleveland, Parham John, and nothing's really. I've said that from the jump. I've said that for a while now, but nothing's changed my mind that says he's going otherwhere. All the signs to me still point towards Cleveland. I think Cleveland still makes the most sense, and I think honestly, I think now it's just, you know, what a lot of this has been about is just again creating content for the documentary. He's probably taking his time. He's been out golfing, going to concerts. Like I think LeBron is enjoying his last time in the spotlight. And, you know, and I'm sure he's probably deciding some things about maybe what they could do with the roster. I think LeBron's had an idea, though, for a while what he wants to do, where he's going to go. I think he probably listened to some other teams, did his due diligence, but ultimately he knew he was where he picks. I think it's going to be Cleveland. Let's say it's Cleveland. I think he's probably known he's been going there for a while. And that's been his plan and his idea, in my opinion. Okay. So I'm not reporting anything. I'm not like Rich Paul said, nobody knows nothing. I know that I'm just saying what I think. Just want to clarify that. But, you know, I think it's always been Cleveland. And I think a lot of this is just, again, great for the documentary. If you're taking minimum money, you can make money back from the documentary down the road. You mean Jordan probably made an assload of money from that Last Chance documentary, which I'm sure that's where the idea kind of came from. So, yeah. He said, off topic, what's your take on the Browns trading Myles Garrett? Well, let me get some sip of water. Stay hydrated. But anyways, what was my thoughts on the Browns trading Myles Garrett? I mean, real quick, you know, I think Myles, I said it at that time when I covered it and instead of leading up to it, I think Myles is at a point in his career where, you know, the Browns were going one way, Myles is going another. Myles is not getting any younger. He's 29 years old, I believe. So he got his bag. He got paid. They readjusted his contract, which opened the door for them to trade him, which was why a lot of people said when that happened back in March, they're like, hey, he might get traded. You know, he broke the single season sack record in the Browns uniform. I think the Browns got what they need to get out of Myles Garrett for where they are right now. The Browns right now are a young team. You know, they're building a really nice nucleus. I would say the Browns might be building the best young nucleus in the NFL right now. You look at what they got. I mean, I think they're the youngest team on paper going into the season, but they got a hell of a young nucleus being built through the draft the last 2 years and smart trades. They got to figure out their quarterback finally, obviously. But, I think to me, I think the trade made sense for all sides. And I think the Browns actually did a pretty good job in the trade. I think they got the first round pick for an extra additional first round pick for next year. They have 11 total draft picks. If they are planning on, so the rumor is that, the ownership wants to get Arch Manning with the relationship with the, Manning family, and the new coach, Todd Monken, has a relationship with Arch as well. We'll see what happens with Shador and Deshaun, but they got an extra draft pick there. They got extra draft picks. They got a second, a third, 2 years after that. So, and they got a guy like Jared Verse. You look at the Browns right now. They had the rookie defensive player of the year last year, Carson Schwarzenegger. Then you get Jared Verse, who was the rookie defensive player of the year before that. He fits where they are with their timeline in terms of age and where they are as a team. So I think they got out of Miles in his contract, but they also brought back a pretty good player who may not ever be Myles Garrett, but it's still gonna be a pretty damn good player to league, I think, of Jared Verse. And I just think the timelines from where Myles was. Myles he's a guy who wants to go to LA finally and get out of Cleveland and go to a bigger market and try to win a Super Bowl and probably retire after that down the road. And go live the rest of his life. I think all Myles needs on his resume is a Super Bowl. He's already he's gonna be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He just needs a Super Bowl, to be considered he has to have that up in that all-time great status, all the other great defensive players in history. So, the Rams obviously are in a win now mode. They got probably a year or two left with Stafford. It made sense for them. It made sense for the Browns. And I think the Browns did a pretty good job with it. Getting Jared Verse an additional first. I mean, if they use that additional first to get their franchise quarterback with the one they already have, and they get that guy, we could be looking at the Browns, 10 years from now, 5-10 years from now, maybe even 2 years from now, if they're 3 years from now, if they're playing at a high level with their franchise quarterback, we would say, man, they did a hell of a job in that trade. And Jared Verse is an all-pro dude. So, but I think it made sense for both sides, and it was the time. It was the right time to do it for everybody involved. But I think they did a good job in that trade, personally. But to finish up the show, I appreciate you guys for your comments and for watching. And if you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share if you like the channel. And I appreciate you guys. I do have a voicemail. We did get a voicemail last night, so I'll play that here in a minute, and I'll drop that number here in a minute. If you guys want to call, leave a voicemail, and let me know where you think LeBron's heading, and your thoughts on the topic of today's show, and when you think he'll announce it. If you got any insight, too, please call. We'll keep it anonymous. But 216-522-5550. But I'll put that number on the screen in a minute, down and below in the ticker as well. But my last clip here before I wrap up, two clips. This was the other one from David Medeman. I didn't react to this, and I'll keep this brief on this one. But he mentioned, this is the same reporter. So earlier today, he went on SportsCenter and said that he was told LeBron's announcing his decision today. Okay, no surprise. I said maybe tomorrow. I could see Thursday, the 23rd, possibly is the day. No later than Saturday, in my opinion. But here's what he said also about LeBron's plans are here coming up.
With two people, one person from two different teams that are still in active pursuit. And those two people both brought up the fact that, like, hey, we have some family vacations planned here. Now, that doesn't mean because they have family vacations they're going to give up the pursuit, but there is a certain impracticality of this wait that is going to only get louder and louder if it keeps going and going. I've checked.
Yeah, and I mentioned that earlier. Obviously what Adam Silver said, LeBron probably don't give a shit, or crap, excuse me. But anyway, but I think it's got to make it this week. There's nothing else going on this week. Nothing else significant going on. This is the perfect week to announce a decision. And I think when I hear Rich Paul say what he said yesterday on the podcast, that, he said it's false reports that he's going to announce in the next 48 hours, but it could happen in 48 seconds. I don't know when it's going to happen. To me, they're setting it up for the announcement to be made this week. Like, it just feels like it's going to happen. It's just going to drop. And how it drops, though, that's probably what the buildup is. I'm sure if you waited this long, you're filming a documentary, I'm sure how he executes this. I don't know if it's just going to be a simple press release again or what, but maybe a video that's already been filmed or they put out. I feel like it's going to be something, though. You would think more than just a bland press release. You waited this long, but I don't know. We'll see. But I think it's coming definitely this week. But Rich Paul made this comment, though, yesterday that some people are also reacting to about what he's told LeBron about this process of picking his team. And I thought this was interesting what he said here, going back to the James Harden's comment. Somebody asked earlier, do you think that could James Harden be on this roster going into training camp? And I say yes. I don't think James is going to be moved till If James does get moved somehow, let's say LeBron comes and doesn't work out and they get to January, February, and they got to maybe ship him out of here, that's more realistic to me. I don't see James getting moved anytime soon. But I thought this comment, though, by Rich Paul said a lot to me, and I think anything that kind of, to me, signals more towards Cleveland. But here's what he had to say.
What's the decision-making process is figuring out for himself how to weigh that stuff.
Yeah, I think the one nugget I will give you, Max, is my advice has been don't just value the paper, because the paper in July is different than when you get into training camp, when you get into January. There's a lot of things to think through.
The paper meaning what?
Yeah, just what's on paper.
Oh, you mean
everything
the
looks
roster
good on paper. Everything looks good on paper. And I think that a lot of times as an athlete, you naturally have this confidence that I can change everything and anything and fix this and fix that in July. But when the battle actually starts and you start to see the tendencies, you start to see habits, you start to see how things operate on a daily basis, and although it's tough to tell, right? It's tough to tell from the seat. You actually have to get in the mud and get your boots dirty.
So is that you saying it's hard to tell from that point of view? So make a family decision?
No.
I understand you're saying you got to look into it carefully?
Yeah, I'm just saying you have to really take your time and think things through, because again, there's no perfect situation, right? But you understand that.
And there's always trade-offs. You get this here, you don't get that there.
Right.
Yeah.
So in life, there's no perfect situation. But my thing is, I rather have no expectation and then get a surprise than have all this expectation and then be disappointed.
Now, that was obviously a longer clip there, a lot to break down there, but I think to finish out the show with that, I think what he's really saying there, though, is because he made the quote, and the quote's right here on my other screen. He said, my advice has been don't just value the paper, because the paper in July is different than what you get going into training camp and what you get going into January. And I get how he explained it there. It was more so like, don't try to build everything right now in July and have the perfect team in July. Go somewhere where you can actually build and develop. And maybe they can add to that as the season goes on. But I think what he's saying there, though, is like, I think go somewhere where even if things don't pan out by January, go somewhere you got some flexibility. You can make some moves. And I think what LeBron can do is go somewhere he has some cachet. And I think that the place he has ultimate cachet is in Cleveland, right? He's got people in the front office. They've always, anytime LeBron wanted something, they got it done for him with the ownership and Kobe Altman and whoever, or Dave Griffin when he was a GM, like David Griffin. LeBron's always had full autonomy in Cleveland. And I saw people saying it over the weekend, like joke, when LeBron goes to Cleveland, when he comes here, automatically the coach, he's listening to LeBron. Everybody's LeBron's boss, basically. They're paying him, but they're still his boss. At the end of the day, they listen to him. So I think what LeBron's going to do is I need to go somewhere where, I got some flexibility with the roster in case we need to. And, and also, like you said, there goes where you can help teach and develop. And I think I pointed that out with Cleveland. We heard LeBron say over the weekend at Fanatics Fest when the kid from the crowd asked him the question. I thought the biggest thing he said the whole weekend was that answer he gave to that kid, which was, I want to go somewhere where I can help elevate them and impact and be the vocal point, which is what he wants to do. And I think Cleveland, again, that points towards Cleveland where they are. He's what they need, and he would be the vocal point here without a doubt, obviously. So it's his city, it's his organization at the end of the day. But I thought that was interesting there, though. Because again, and also to me, going back to the James Harden side of things, you can take that as also, hey, if we get January, February, and things aren't clicking, we could just ship people out of here. Like we've all, they've done that before at times on LeBron's teams. We got to get the deadline, make some moves, make it happen. And I think if LeBron wants it to happen, it'll get done. Now, hopefully we're not in that spot. Hopefully it works out. But, but again, I just think you listen to what they're hinting at, what LeBron has said, what Rich Paul's saying. You hear all the reports. Everything just kind of, you hear his ex-teammates talking. Like, everything to me still signals towards Cleveland, Cleveland, Cleveland. It makes the most sense. Like my guy Randy Schloop said yesterday, he put in the commentary, Cleveland, 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 Cleveland. Like, everything just points towards Cleveland, and it makes the most sense to me. But that's how I see it. Again, I think the decision will be put out like it was told to me. I think it'll be put out. I could see tomorrow. I could see Thursday makes a lot of sense because it's the 23rd, 23 for 23. I don't know, possibly. Friday, Saturday. I think it's going to happen this week. And I think they're setting it up for that. And it's a great week to do it because there's literally nothing else going on in sports. I mean, you got baseball, but it's in the middle of the dog days of summer. There's no training camps in the NFL don't start the next week, really. There's nothing going on. So it's a great week. And it's great for the NBA, too, this week because once LeBron signs, the usual transactions that we usually get beginning of July, all these crazy, all these names, guys re-signing, new contract. We didn't get that like that this year fully because of LeBron stalling. And the whole league stalled, or because of LeBron's taking his time, it's kind of stalled the league. So is what I meant to say. But you would get that as soon as LeBron signs, there's going to be dominoes that are going to fall right after. So, and guys like Jonathan Kuminga, who could really help impact the team next year, could be trying to contend for a championship. Like, you're going to see pieces like that get moved finally. So, and signing trades and stuff like that. So, it's a great week for it's a great week for the NBA to have this happen. And I think it's good for the best week for LeBron to do it. And he can obviously move on the rest of the summer and get it over with. And so, like David Medeman said too, it's got to get wrapped up. So I think this is the week they're setting it up for, in my opinion. Every other team that LeBron goes to, that's not his team. That's another star. So why would LeBron do that? That makes no sense. Don't you think? Yeah. And I've said that all along. I just have a hard time believing LeBron. Part of the reason why he's not a Laker anymore is because A, they got new ownership, and then B, they brought in Luka. And then C, that new owner told LeBron last summer, we'll pay you out the rest of your contract, but we're building around this guy now. You're not the focal point anymore, and we're not going to re-sign you for the money you would want from us. So, and that's why he's not a Laker anymore. And if LeBron goes to Golden State, it's Steph Curry's town, no matter what. They beat LeBron 3 times in the championship. That's, I mean? Like, if he goes to Miami, he's obviously LeBron in Miami. Now, it's always Wade County, but they just brought in Giannis. And Giannis was brought in like to be the guy that's supposed to be the next franchise player. If he goes to Philly, then Embiid's been there for a long time. Maxi's even been there, but he's not like when he's in Cleveland, he's the vocal point. I know Mitchell's been here, like Kyrie was here, but when LeBron comes to Cleveland, it's his town. He's the biggest star in Cleveland over anybody else. Like, they put the billboard up and be next to the stadium of him, the Choctaws. Like, it's his hometown. Like, he's the dude here. He has cachet here. Like I pointed out within the organization and around the fan base in the town. He's the dude in Northeast Ohio. He's one of he's from here. So it's like it's his franchise. He's the guy that's brought this franchise to a championship. He took it to another level. So he's the guy, and I think that means something to LeBron. Jordan went out in the Last Dance documentary. Jordan went out in his Chicago Bulls franchise that he built up. They were shit when he got there, and he built them up to 6 championships. And he's the guy in Chicago and forever will be. When Kobe Bryant retired, he was a Laker. He was a Laker his whole career, won 5 championships there, went out 60 points. He's an icon in LA. Kobe's the man in LA. It's his city. LeBron, I think LeBron wants to go out where it's his city, it's his town, it's his franchise, and he's in that. I think how you're remembered is the key thing to all this, and I think that matters to LeBron. Your last image is how you're remembered. So I think he wants to be remembered in his own uniform, in his own franchise, in his own city. Where, like, when you look at the Cavaliers, you think of LeBron instantly. Nobody else. When you think of the Bulls, you think of Jordan. When you think of the Celtics, you think of Bird. When you think of the Lakers, you think of Kobe in this era, and Magic in the last. When you think of Tim Duncan, you think of the Spurs, right? Like, that matters. That matters to these guys. When you're up in that, elite upper echelon of players of all time. Red Hammer says 100%. Yeah, 100%, my friend. I appreciate you, Red Hammer. Appreciate you, Judah Rising. Parent John, is always good to see you, brother. Appreciate you, Brian Lou. Appreciate you, Uncle Joey. Appreciate you, Tribe Double O, Adam Hurley, Firefly, my guy Wally, Dream WAKR, Trinity Boy. Shout out to everybody tuned in. If you're watching on the playback, shout out to you. Shout out to Grandma Patty. Says hi, honey. Love you, Grandma. Hope you're having a good day. Here for another update yet again. But also, if you guys want to call and leave a voicemail, you call now and let me know what you think LeBron's going and when he'll announce it. Or if you have some insight, we'll keep it anonymous. 216-532-5550. Again, 216-532-5550. Call and leave a voicemail now or after the show. And let us know where you think LeBron's going and give us your feedback on all things the topic of today's show. And if you want to talk some Browns, even you want to call them with thoughts what you think of the Brown season coming up, call now. 216-532-5550. Call now. We had a voicemail last night from a gentleman in Cleveland. I could tell a longtime fan, so I will play this voicemail because, like I promised, any voicemail that's called in, I will play it on the show. So I'm going to play this voicemail, and then after that, I'll wrap up the show and we'll get up out of here. But here's yesterday from my guy in Cleveland. Here's what he had to say. He's talking to LeBron here at the end of this. I'll give you a heads up. It's a 2-minute voicemail. He had a lot to say here, so hear him out. But at the end of this voicemail, he starts telling LeBron what he needs to do. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, my name is Johnny Bearden. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I think realistically that LeBron's going to choose Philadelphia, which he shouldn't. For the simple fact, he's got a player that is going to be real great and could learn from him. There's no other team that he should go to. He's got young players, a good mix, and he'll be a leader of the team. And plus, he'll teach a future star. So I don't see him going nowhere else but Cleveland. Because Thomas needs him. And he should help develop him. So that would be the wisest choice. And there's too many balls and needed for all them players that Philly got. Everybody needs the ball. I hope he does the right thing this time. I'm with him though, but do the right thing, LeBron. I used to stay in Akron too. I'll stay in Cleveland now. You need to do the right thing, man. You got a future star just like you was when you came up. And Cleveland gave you a chance. Give this boy a chance. And he will be good. And you will win. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Shout out to my guy who called into the show. But you can call in the show right now. Again, 216-532-5550. You leave a voicemail just like that. What your thoughts are on LeBron and what you think he should do and when he'll announce it and all that. But I feel like I like what he said at the end. Like, LeBron, this is what you need to do. Like, you will win. Like, I feel like it was like a part of the movie. Like, they should put that in the documentary. They're filming like, hey, this is the guy that closed the deal with LeBron. He called him at the end and told him like the older statesman with all the wisdom and said, you need to go back home and win. You will win. Like that's your calling in life. But shout out to him. But yeah, appreciate you guys for tuning in today. Please like, subscribe, and share as always. Hype the video as well. And maybe next time I see you, it'll be a reaction to the decision finally being announced. Hopefully the Cleveland like I expect. So hey, I'll see you guys when that happens. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys next one. I'm out of here.
Okay.